The rain that morning made everything grayer than usual, but nothing drew more attention than the silent figure of a dog named Toby, sitting in the exact same spot on the sidewalk where, according to some residents, he hadn't moved in years. It was impossible to pass by without feeling that tightness in the chest, that mixture of curiosity, sadness, and unease that only real and deeply moving stories can evoke. For many, Toby was just an abandoned dog, one among many. But for those who looked for more than a few seconds, there was something about him, a living mystery, a silent drama, a faithful suffering that seemed to tell a whole story without uttering a single sound. His body trembled discreetly in the cold wind. His paws were always positioned in the same way, and his head only lifted when someone passed too close, as if he were anxiously checking if it would finally be that person he had been waiting for. While some hurried past, averting their gaze as if his suffering were a burden too heavy to bear, others paused for a few seconds, trying to understand what made that little dog remain there, motionless, in that painful routine that seemed to repeat itself day after day. And it was impossible not to wonder, why does he never leave? This question echoed like a whisper among the residents, especially among those who, even without admitting it, had formed a silent bond with Toby. Among them was Donna Helena, a grey-haired lady who sold flowers on the corner and always left a piece of bread beside him. She was one of the few who couldn't move on without feeling that pang in her heart every time she saw him lying there, curled up, watching the street as if searching for something or someone that never arrived. Toby's gaze spoke volumes. It was a distant, fixed look, laden with longing and a kind of hope that cuts to the heart of anyone who witnesses it. A stubborn, almost innocent hope, like that of someone who believes the person they love will return at any moment. The old collar around his neck, worn by time and rain, was a silent clue that he once had a different life, perhaps full of affection, companionship, and routine. And it was precisely this almost broken collar that aroused even more mystery. Many wondered where he came from, who his owner was, and how such a gentle and loyal dog could end up alone in that same place day after day. And then there was his posture, always the same. Toby remained seated, motionless, as if every muscle in his small body were bound to an invisible memory. Sometimes, as the sun set, he would slowly shift to a more comfortable position, lay his head on the ground and close his eyes, but never completely relaxed. It was as if he were afraid to fall asleep and miss something important, something only he knew what it was. With every car movement, every step of someone approaching, his body reacted. He would rise slightly, wag his tail restrainedly, but soon sit back down, disheartened, when he realized it wasn't who he expected. And what's most striking is that it seemed Toby wasn't just waiting. He was holding on to something, holding on to a moment, a promise, a farewell that should never have happened. There on that stretch of sidewalk marked by rain, sun, and untold stories, Toby stood firm, as if he believed everything could go back to the way it was before. And it's precisely at this point in the story that doubt begins to grow, the mystery deepens, and the emotion becomes impossible to contain. Because although many tried to understand, no one really knew what held Toby there. Not yet. But that begins to change when a forgotten detail from the past finally reappears in his path. And while Toby stood there, steadfast in his silent vigil, the people around began to realize that this scene wasn't just sad. It was a stark portrait of real life, of what we often prefer to ignore. The silent pain, the unseen waiting, the loyalty that is almost never reciprocated. And somehow, that little dog, wet, tired, but incredibly determined, awakened in people the feeling that something needed to change. Not only in his life, but in the way we see all the animals that carry stories that will never be told in words, only through eyes like Toby's. And that's exactly why, before we continue this story, and reveal what really happened to keep Toby stuck in that same spot on the street for so many years, I want to ask you something very simple but very powerful. If this story has already moved you so far, make that clear in the comments. Write what you feel needs to change, what you believe we, as individuals, as a community, can do so that stories like Toby's don't happen again. Your comment isn't just a comment. It shows that you care, that you see, that you listen, and when many voices come together, it creates real impact. So before we move on to the next part, where the first pieces of this mystery finally begin to fall into place, I want to ask you for 3 things that greatly help this type of story reach more people. Leave a like, because it shows that exciting and real stories matter. Subscribe to the channel so you can follow each new case like Toby's, and share in the comments what has touched your heart so far. What would you do if you found a dog like this, waiting for someone who might never return? Your engagement truly makes a difference. It shows the algorithm that these stories deserve to be seen, that these lives deserve to be remembered. And above all, it helps build a community that believes in empathy, in change, and in the importance of not turning a blind eye when someone, even if that someone is a silent dog like Toby, is asking for help without saying a word. Now, take a deep breath, because from here on out, we begin to get to the heart of the story. And it is precisely when someone unexpected appears in Toby's path that everything finally begins to change. As Toby stood there, firmly on that piece of sidewalk that already seemed part of his body, something began to change around the story that everyone thought they knew, but that no one truly understood. Long-time residents, people who had been on that street long before the new shops and buildings, finally began to reveal what they knew. It wasn't a simple story. It wasn't something that could be told without a lump in the throat. It was one of those narratives that leave deep marks because they show precisely the most human and often the cruelest side of relationships with animals. It was Seu Arlindo, a tired-eyed man who had lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years, who decided to speak first. He approached Toby on a cold afternoon while the dog watched the street activity as if still searching for something invisible. And seeing that scene repeated so many times, Seu Arlindo let out a long sigh, like someone who had kept a painful secret for a long time. "That dog, he's not here by chance," he said, his voice breaking. "He's in the last place he saw his owner." From that point on, the story began to take shape, like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. Toby wasn't lost. He wasn't wandering. He wasn't there by negligence or by chance. He chose to stay there because, on that exact stretch of sidewalk years ago, he saw his owner being taken away after a serious accident. It was the point where their paths forcibly separated, a moment frozen in time that Toby could never let go of. For him, that place still held the promise of a reunion. And so the months passed slowly, tirelessly. Months that became 1, 2, 3 years, and Toby remained there, aging before the eyes of those who passed by every day. With each change of season, his body showed signs of fatigue. His fur, once shiny, began to turn white on the sides of his face. His paws became more shaky, slower, but his routine never changed. He remained seated, attentive, watching each person who got off the bus, each figure who turned the corner, hoping to recognize a scent, a step, a tone of voice. For anyone who observed him for more than a few seconds, it was clear. He believed that if he stayed there, his best friend would return. And no matter how much the residents tried to offer comfort, food, water, even shelter, Toby never accepted being too far from that spot. It was as if every meter he walked away was a betrayal of what he felt. His loyalty was so profound that it touched even those who were never easily moved. He was living proof that dogs carry a kind of love that we humans often don't know how to reciprocate. A love that withstands time, absence, abandonment, even when the abandonment wasn't intentional. And as this truth began to spread through the neighborhood, people started to see Toby differently, no longer as a sad dog trapped in a strange habit, but as a symbol of pure fidelity, of a bond that transcends even logic. Because for Toby, there was no doubt, no questioning, no alternative. In his mind, his owner would still return. He just had to wait. And perhaps that's why this part of the story is so moving. Because it shows the raw reality of many animals who, even without understanding our mistakes or our limitations, continue to love with an almost impossible strength. Before we move on to the next chapter of this story, I want you to tell me in the comments, write, "I believe in the love of animals," or "True loyalty exists," to show that you are here with me and that this story is truly touching your heart. As the days passed, something began to subtly change around Toby. Perhaps it was the glances, no longer just curious, but filled with concern. Perhaps it was the way the residents began to rally around him, as if everyone had simultaneously awakened to the fact that this dog couldn't continue living like that forever. The whole neighborhood already knew the story. Everyone knew that Toby remained there because that was the last place he had seen his owner. And this truth, which had previously been just a forgotten rumor, had now become a collective burden. A painful reminder of how much loyalty can fit inside such a small heart. It was then that Marina, a young volunteer at a local shelter, began to observe him more closely. She said there was something about Toby that wasn't seen in any other abandoned dog. There was a silent resilience, a love so great that it seemed to transform that stretch of sidewalk into sacred territory. Marina always approached slowly, respecting his boundaries, offering food, water, and above all, a kind of presence that didn't invade, but simply accompanied him. And Toby, although still vigilant, began to recognize that gentle figure who sat a few meters away to keep him company. It wasn't much, but it was enough to show that even living amidst pain, he could still trust. Over time, Marina noticed that Toby was aging too quickly. The waiting was taking a heavy toll. The cold nights made his body increasingly stiff. The harsh sun hurt his fragile skin. The constant rain made his small, makeshift shelter seem insufficient. And yet, Toby never agreed to leave. It was as if each rescue attempt was a threat to the last memory he had of his guardian, a gesture of love so profound it was almost devastating. That's when Marina made a decision. She wouldn't try to forcibly remove him from there anymore. Instead, she would try to win his heart little by little until he himself chose a new path. She began taking him to the vet gradually, always returning to the same spot on the sidewalk so he wouldn't feel betrayed. She bought a little bed and left it beside him without pressuring him, just allowing him to get used to it. In a few days, Toby was already lying in it at night, as if he understood that this small gesture of care had been made exclusively for him. Months passed, and for the first time in years, Toby took a different step. It wasn't much, just half a meter to the side, but it was enough for Marina to realize that something was changing. That's when she dared to do more. She invited Toby for a short walk, and surprisingly, he accepted. He walked a few meters, slowly, like someone cautiously experiencing a new reality. But of course, he returned to the same place at the end. The memory was still stronger than any attempt to start over. Until one cold morning, Toby couldn't get up. Marina found him huddled up, breathing weakly, but still looking out at the street as if hoping to recognize a face among the passersby. She knelt beside him and hugged him with the care one has for something sacred. Toby rested his head in her lap and closed his eyes, trusting her as he had never trusted anyone else since the day he lost everything. The residents slowly approached, silently, forming a respectful circle around him. It was as if the entire neighborhood was there for the moment that somehow everyone already knew would one day arrive. A heartbreaking moment, but one that also revealed the beauty of the loyalty that Toby carried until the end. And in that instant, as Marina held her paw, something became clear to everyone there. Some loves never truly go away, even when everything around them has. Dee, before we move on to the next part of this story, I want you to write one of these phrases in the comments to show how much Toby's loyalty touched you. Toby deserves to be remembered. The love of animals is pure. I will never abandon those who love me.